right, that was the Lawford brothers from Good Nature. Up next is Joyce Longfield. Yeah, come on up. Joyce Longfield, as I was trying to explain this yesterday to someone. I mean, if there was an expert, if there was a higher than an expert in something, Joyce is it in terms of HPP. And you represent Hyperbaric, one of the major manufacturers of HPP equipment.
Yes, yeah, the global leaders, that's for sure.
The global leaders,
yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you?
Very well. Yes,
Good.
Enjoying the show a lot.
Good. So I mean, it's just changed so dramatically. HPP.
Mm-hmm.
In 2011, I think it was just Evolution. Really, was one of the only few juice brands that was doing HPP. Something I mentioned on stage with Jimmy and Jeff.
Yeah.
But now everyone's doing it. I mean, you're seeing it done for things that have nothing to do with juice in some cases. Mm-hmm. Where is it growing fastest in terms of other beverages outside of juice?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, other beverages.
Other beverage categories.
It really isn't outside of juice. I mean, we have other people that are inquiring about like the smoothies. I don't know if you're classifying smoothies as juices or outside of juices. Okay, so smoothies and more juices that have, I guess, more of a mouthfeel to them. We've seen these chunky juices or chewable juices, this kind of stuff, right? But I do see a lot of potential for like this type of category with the probiotics.
Yep. This is Suja's new probiotic water, which you're going into Target with, I think, next year.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, obviously, a lot of the companies are using a type of probiotic that's added to it where it survives the HPP process and it activates in your gut and goes that way. But I'm even thinking something like a kombucha, which is an actively fermenting, lactobacillus or yeast, right? But if you don't want a really heavy kombucha that has like a lot of culture to it, even then throwing it into the HPP unit to kind of stop the process where you want it to end, I think is going to be really interesting to see that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we had seen HPP used in one of our best of categories in new brew coffee in the winner of the New Beverage Showdown in the summertime in raw chocolate. But it sounds like most of the activity is still happening in juice.
It is, and I think that, there is a food safety aspect to that as well, because, we definitely know that keeping the acid higher, so keeping your pH lower, is better from a food safety perspective. It's a lot less hassle with your FDA inspectors and so forth. And so there is a lot of concerns and questions out there about HPP, low acid beverages. And, so if you were a startup and you have to think about that, if there's no conclusive direction coming from the FDA to say what's going to happen in the next couple months, would you want to launch a whole line of alkaline products? Or would you want to be able to, if something happened and you had to stop selling certain SKUs, you have some that are properly acidified, and that makes sense. So juice obviously fits very naturally with that.
Right. But for other categories, they're saying you need a secondary step. And it's particularly in coconut water, which we've seen, you take that secondary step with UV light, microfiltration, things like that.
Yeah.
You sent us an email a couple weeks ago, or at least I think you sent it to John, a really interesting use of HPP, one that we never would have thought of, is beer. Tell us about that.
Well, I think that it does have potential for this artisanal category and craft beers and stuff, but I like IPAs, I like the hoppiness, I like the bitterness, that kind of stuff. But I find that they all do, in a way, kind of taste similar. So I think there's an opportunity to do some really unique stuff, right? Because, again, if you want to parallel it to the juices, HPP is very successful with green juices because your pasteurized green juice just wouldn't taste the same.
Correct, right.
So let's find a beer recipe that if I pasteurize this, it's not going to taste the same. And if I use HPP, it tastes better, right? And I'm getting that shelf life that I want as well. So I think there's that kind of potential, very similar to kind of like the kombucha too, right? You could do something, maybe it would taste different, your flavor profile, right?
Well, I guess the big question I have is carbonation. How does Can you HPP carbonated beverages?
You can. A lot of people just need to realize that you do need a special bottle that's different than, say, like a regular juice bottle. Well, not even just so much the bottle, but the bottle and the cap. So if you were to take your name brand soda pop companies and throw them into an HPP unit, they're still going to come out carbonated and everything will be fine. But that's a different type of bottle and cap package than what most juice companies are using. So they need to just talk to their supplier, and same thing with the juice, do some trial and error.
Have you seen any examples of that yet?
Not really, because I think a lot of the co-packers for carbonated stuff just aren't geared up towards doing some kind of cold fill that then goes on to have a secondary process,
Right.
So it would be a lot of changing from the manufacturing side for a lot of them, unless a company wants to invest, just like the juice companies, with all of that equipment you need for carbonation.
Right. Let's talk very briefly, because I know we're almost out of time, about companies that had been buying their own HPP machines, and now you're starting to see a lot of outsourcing, a lot of co-packing, a lot of plants opening up that specifically do just HPP.
Yeah.
Are cold pressed juice companies still buying these machines, or are you seeing most of the activity happen to these larger co-packing or tolling facilities?
In the U.S., I think it's going to go more to the latter of what you were describing, and it really makes sense because anytime you can buy in bulk, you bring your prices down, and then also you just get better pricing from brokers, and you get more stability throughout the year from your supply side. There's just so many advantages to working with a co-packer that can do it on a professional level. But even that, the opportunity or the availability isn't everywhere, right? You still can't find it. So I think the next best thing is kind of what we've seen at your show this year with vegetable juices, where they're going to provide a high quality, very clean vegetable juice, already juiced. So then you just basically buy that, blend it, bottle it, HPP. And they're also going to keep your prices very stable. They're going to keep the quality of the product very stable throughout the year. So if you can't co-pack, I'd say that's your next best choice.
Outstanding advice as always, Joyce. Thanks so much for doing that. And I think if you were an attendee or if you're watching on the live stream and you want to do HPP or you have any questions about HPP, again, I can't stress enough, this is the person to talk to. So thanks so much, Joyce. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, my
We'll
pleasure.
see you soon. And you can just pass on the mic to our next guest.